Joining me now on the Knicks Film School podcast, he is the most popular man in show business. I mean, this time of year especially, but when isn't he the most popular man in show business? He is beat reporter extraordinaire for the New York Knicks, reporting for SNY, but only because Mark Berman has been off the beat. Because clearly that is a belt that Berman held with his hard and fast reporting for so many years. Ian Begley, how does it feel to carry on Mark's esteemed legacy?
Big shoes to fill. I'm picturing Berman like one of the Legion of Doom guys, or the Bash Brothers, maybe, like with a big belt on, coming in the locker room like this. That's what I'm seeing right now. And I miss Mark. I love Mark. I miss him. But I hear from him regularly.
You do? Oh, that's good. I only keep his his tweets, which I still have on notification. So anytime Mark tweets, whether it's about Florida high school tennis or dropping in from the top rope, which he does occasionally on the Knicks, it's good time. All right, enough about Berman. The Knicks are a good basketball team. Can we actually start there before we get into any of the trade stuff?
Absolutely, because this is a rare occurrence, infrequent occurrence. If we're talking about the year 2000 on, infrequent. And I think you know it. You guys should soak this up, because this is a very, very competitive team, a team that if they're healthy, they have a chance to do something. And this team has a foundation that can be built upon. So I am, as a neutral observer, I'm impressed by how they've played and how the pieces have fit so well.
And as a neutral observer, what I'm always curious, what I always try to sneak in a question about when I talk to you is, you're there every day. You get a sense of things as you just went. By the way, I loved the conversation with Fred about reporting. I could listen to you guys talk about that for an hour, but I thought it was funny. We were like, yeah, nobody wants to hear about this.
No, but thank you.
You hear and see a lot that you don't explicitly report. You want to call it vibe check, call it whatever you want. When you're there every day, how do things seem? How do things feel? Because it's from the outside looking in, it looks pretty great.
Yeah, it seems like a very good locker room, right? And I don't want to, I guess, overstate what we see, and to a lesser extent here, because you hear stuff that you don't see, but what we see in terms of being in the locker room, sometimes before the game and after the game, it's tight periods of time. Guys are, I guess, looser before the game or very loose after a win, but it's not like we're seeing the guys on their own and how it is when no one's in there, no cameras are in there. But just based on observation, it seems like this group is connected well and has a belief about itself, and also just enjoys being around each other. I think Josh Hart said it last night after he said he hopes to make a shot before Christ returns. He also said that the vibes are really good. And it seems that way. And you see how it is on the court. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to, the decision makers for getting OG Anunoby, but then OG Anunoby himself for just fitting in right away before he even knew what sets to run or where he was supposed to be, just fitting in really well. And I think that's a big credit to him.
I completely agree. And one thing before we move on to what might be in store, I could, only because I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this. I don't know any other way to phrase this, so I'll just phrase it the way I think makes sense. How hard of a decision do you think pulling the trigger on the OG Anunoby trade was for the front office? If you have any insight to offer on that.
My understanding and kind of also a guess would be that with Emmanuel Quickley, it was pretty much known that it was going to be difficult to retain him in restricted free agency and then do other things that they wanted to do, which included, re-signing Isaiah Hartenstein and other things. It was going to be challenging. So the Quickley being traded didn't shock me. The RJ Barrett, I think I was a little more surprised, only because he's on I would say a good deal from a cap perspective. but I didn't know like which teams would be taking that in if he became available. And so that I think was a little more surprising. But I think going back to your first question, and it was about what was it? How willing? I'm sorry.
Yeah, like, do you think it was an easy decision for them at the end of the day? Yeah,
I think, given the players and given who they got back, and they've been on him for so long, and given the draft compensation, I don't know, easy is not the word, but it was probably a decision that everyone saw as completely rational when it was made because of everything, all the factors at play, including having to pay quickly this summer.
That makes sense. Julius Randle. So I don't really know how to even ask you questions about this because I feel like you, along with the rest of the beat, has kind of made it very clear, like what you guys know, which is that there's this level of optimism. Okay, great, but it's cautious optimism, and let's not celebrate just yet. What I am curious to know from you, and again, this is anytime I talk to you, it's always I always feel like I should have a giant disclaimer, like Ian Begley is offering his opinion to some extent on these questions. Aggregators, get ready. But with the Randle injury, as of now, and maybe we're all going to get, maybe you're going to get a buzz on your phone, and that'll all change. But like as of now, there's still some uncertainty, some level of uncertainty. Do you, or at least it purports to be a level of uncertainty? Do you think that there is actual uncertainty about what is going on, or do you think that there is? I wouldn't even know what to ask about, but like something else going on, which is why we have not found out. Okay, it's this X, Y, and Z.
I mean, the tinfoil hat. Maybe you say because of the trade deadline, they don't want some information out there, but that wouldn't even make sense because everybody knows that Julius Randle is going to miss, at least 3 to 4 weeks because of a shoulder dislocation. So I do think that there is just kind of more fact finding going on. I'm going to take Tom Thibodeau at his word on that because there were tests done. I know for sure tests done after that initial X-ray and MRI on Saturday night, and then there were additional tests Sunday. And look, I'm not a doctor, but obviously they need to figure out, even if Julius Randle can avoid in-season surgery, can they get him to a place where he can be back on the court and be effective? And I would assume that's not something that every doctor would see the same thing on. So maybe they're gathering opinions on who sees what and who sees the pathway forward. So I don't think there's anything, any other element here, but the thing that confused me and the thing that ruined 2 days of my life was I thought.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's all good. I thought on Saturday night, I thought Sunday we would have something. But then for sure, like Monday morning, I had a good reason to think that we would get something Monday evening, and it's been crickets. So it's that part raises my eyebrow, but I don't have any real tangible reason to think it's anything other than what's been said publicly.
So with that lack of information in mind, this is probably going to be a quick answer, but have you formulated an opinion at this point on how, if at all, the injury is impacting New York's approach at the trade deadline? And I realize as I'm asking that's a complicated question because we've now seen two games without Julius Randle. I want to get back to those 2 games in a moment because you and Fred talked about, accountability seems to be through the roof at the moment. And maybe that wasn't always 100% the case, but just let's keep it simple for a second. Anything on that front, do you think it's influencing, things one way or the other?
I have not heard that they've been more or less aggressive at all in the wake of the Randle deal. One team in touch with them said like they felt like maybe the Knicks were in a bit of a holding pattern, waiting to see where it landed with Julius. But that's just one team, and it's spoken to 1 or 2 people over there. So maybe that's the way it's impacting them right now. Maybe they just need some clarity before they can figure out what they want to do. But I think that the interesting thing that I had heard right before. Well, I heard it after the injury, but it was true before the injury. Was there was a sentiment. I don't know if it was a general sentiment, but there was some sentiment to standing pat and to not doing anything because for I think several factors. One, they were playing well, and it's do you want to mess that up? No. Is it difficult to integrate somebody at let's call him Malcolm Brogdon at this point in the season? Yes, it's tough, and also it's hard to thread the needle that they would like to thread, which as you know is trying to get a player back who's under contract for next year for trade purposes, and also trying to maximize Quentin Grimes' value in a trade. And you can't do that sending him out on his own because there's no player who has commensurate talent that's making the money he's making. So you really have to include him with Evan Fournier to get a solid player back. And it's difficult. It's not easy. So I think those were the factors there. And if I'm playing it forward with Randle, they're still playing well, but I would think they would want to do something without him for several weeks. But I do think that the hurdle is because they want to do something so specific that it's tough to get done.
I'm trying to make this question as clear as possible because the most important, the thing I wanted to know from you the most is this. We've seen this team play basketball now under this regime for this is whatever it is, the fourth year. A lot of times they could go honestly months at a time, and I don't know necessarily how much new things we are learning because it's the same lineups more or less, and it's like some guys may get hot, some guys may get cold. The information that they have been able to gather over the last month, first post OG, and now with this ultra small sample size of no Randle, it's like. And no OG, once they had him, now they don't have him, is like they're learning so much so fast. Like Dante DiVincenzo's exploding, all of a sudden. From what you've been able to glean over your years, not only reporting on this regime, but just all of your years reporting, like, do you think this is the sort of front office group that will like read and react, to use a Tibbs term, read and react in like real time and really be taking in all that they're seeing and holding this as like really, not that it's, of course they're going to hold it as important evidence, but this trade deadline's a week away from tomorrow or today. Yeah. So like, how much do you think that what they are seeing and what they have seen recently might impact what they're planning on doing or I guess not doing?
Yeah. I think that the people that I can speak about with a degree of confidence, they're not, I don't want to say knee jerk, but they're not. They take a broader view, and they take, they take a lot into account in making a decision, and making a trade is a huge decision. So I don't think like anybody would say, "Hey, these last two games without Julius, XYZ, Dante DiVincenzo has been amazing. Let's change our thinking at the deadline because of that." I think it's more so, if I'm guessing, right? It's how does OG look, and then it's also what are we doing at backup center, and then Precious Achiuwa, he's played well the past few games, and is it him finding a comfort level and just allowing his natural talent to come out? We'll keep finding out more information about that, but I think the way he's played, if he can continue to do that, I do think that changes how they would approach a backup center, whether it's trading for a Daniel Gafford or a Clint Capella or what have you. So I think that's interesting, but I don't know if anybody's going to say, I'm sure there are, look, there are a lot of voices over there, a lot of different kind of groups, alignments. So I'm sure there are people within the building saying like, well, Dante DiVincenzo's been unreal. Like, let's tap into this. Let's make a decision around this. But as like Leon Rose and I think as a majority, I don't think that would be the case.
Okay. And again, I think the proof is in the pudding, because how many things that they've done over the course of time would you call like a knee jerk reaction? I don't,
not many.
Yeah, not many. The closest one I could think of, I wouldn't call the Kemba signing like knee jerk, but like that, the buyout kind of happened, and then it like they were there, and that funny enough that didn't work out so well. So I wonder if
they like needed a point guard. Yeah. Yes. And also I would say, just kind of piggybacking off of that, that general trait, there were times where we know it, like Tom Thibodeau's seat was boiling hot, and Leon Rose and everyone else didn't make that knee-jerk decision where it would have been easy to fire the head coach, and then you kind of absolve yourself of blame as a team decision maker, as the head of the franchise. Leon didn't do that. He stuck with Tom Thibodeau through rough patches, through patches where we've seen other Knicks coaches get fired. And he didn't do that. And now, I think he's reaping the benefits of that kind of patience. And I think that loyalty to Tom Thibodeau, because you look at where they are right now, and I think Tom Thibodeau has played a significant role in this record.
Two quick ones, and then we'll get to what everybody wants, which is I'm going to throw some names at you. Speaking of Tibbs, have you heard anything on extension talks? And I ask you only because I get asked about it a lot.
The only thing I know for sure was it didn't reach like a significant point prior to the start of the season. And I could only assume, well, I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions. I know it didn't get far before the season, and my assumption would be if something happens, unless they win 60 games, something would happen after the playoffs based on how things had gone.
And then OG Anunoby, again, I'm asking you this question at 5:44 on Wednesday, January 31st. So it may be irrelevant by the time this posts, but like any update that you know on there?
I don't have an update there. I don't think it's anything that's serious. I think it was something that we saw him he had an ice pack on. I believe it was the Miami game. Yeah. So, obviously he tweaked it or hurt it in some way there, but I don't think it's anything serious.
Malcolm Brogdon, you have been steadfast, I would say, in reporting that, and again, you just spoke about this with Fred, so I don't want to step on the toes of the wonderful Cats and Shoot podcast, which everybody listening should go and subscribe to. It was truly a great spot. But you've been pretty consistent reporting that you have not heard. It would be very clear. You have not heard that talks of like that. There's been a whole lot there. The thing again, I get this from a lot of fans. Like, why wouldn't they be going after Brogdon? He seems like the perfect fit. He's a veteran, but he's not too old. His contract works. All these things. Do you have any insight as to why maybe they aren't barking up that tree?
I think. I just hesitate to like paint it with a broad brush, because who knows, Saturday could come around and they could be on the phone with Portland, and then they say, we need him, so let's get something done. But, to date, I think that you look at Tom Thibodeau and you look at what they're trying to do, which is add to their bench, get a creator off the bench. And I think he's got a comfort level, I would assume, with an Alec Burks or with a Bruce Brown, and that comfort level is much higher than it would be with a Malcolm Brogdon. So that's kind of how I see it through that prism a bit. But again, things could change quickly. If you said to me, are you going to put money on the idea that the Knicks are going to trade for Malcolm Brogdon? I wouldn't put money on it, but again, things, situations change, as we see with the Julius Randle injury. So it's hard to say with any certainty what's going to happen on February 8th.
You mentioned Bruce Brown and Alec Burks. I know you've been asked about this 10 Ways from Sunday. You've reported on this 10 Ways from Sunday. So I'm going to try to phrase it a little bit differently. In your opinion, do you think that that those two, again, if you're placing Ian Begley's imaginary, 100-point chip on something, is there, are they at the top of where you would most likely place your chip? Look good doing that, man. It's very natural.
I have no experience doing that.
You remind me of the Tom Cruise character in Tropic Thunder when he does that silly dance and he's doing, yeah, anyway. You don't look like him, to be very clear. Anyway, would you place? I don't know why that came to mind. Do you think that those two names are like, if like there's a most likely category? Not saying that you're saying they are likely to trade for them, but if you had to put some names at the top of the list, are they at the top? And if so, is there like a little gap between them and everybody else, in your opinion?
Yeah, my opinion would be that those two, I think, would be at the top. The thing that trips me up is, again, the idea that like there was some some thought to not do anything. And I just wonder how much that extends beyond just the Randle injury and now the idea that he might come back. I don't know how pervasive that idea is, but the fact that it was a rather significant thought. I don't know how to put it. It was a thought that just makes me wonder, like, even with Burks and Bruce Brown, like, do you feel comfortable doing what you would need to do to get that done? And Burks, it's tricky because of his salary. The salary match makes it tricky. One scenario, though, that I think is interesting is you put Burks and you put Mr. Kevin Knox together in a package, and then you have Fournier, and the math works. But Knox actually can't be traded until the day of the trade deadline. Anyhow, yeah, it's I think it's, again, tricky needle to thread, but I would say, yeah, at this point, Burks and Brown are probably a tier above anybody else. And the backup big situation to me is interesting too because of how Achua is playing.
I think I looked this up correctly. If I'm recalling correctly, I think Kevin Knox is 100th in Knicks history in games played. Don't ask me why.
Wow.
I looked
Wow. Look at you going down the list.
Yeah. And maybe he'll get higher. Who knows? If there was a name that emerged as, like, whether you report it or whether somebody else reports it, like the Knicks are, showing serious interest in player X, not someone we've already talked about. Is there one name that you think, no, that wouldn't surprise me for whatever reason that we haven't talked about already?
Yeah, I think Jordan Clarkson would be that name. And like a couple weeks ago, I was just talking to a team and they were saying, like, Utah, they don't want to trade him. Like, they love him and it would take a ton. Don't want to trade him. It would take a ton to get him out of Utah because they value him a lot. And at that point, the Jazz were winning games. So I don't know if that has changed since then, but I do think the price would be very high. But if you look at what the Knicks want, again, player under contract beyond this season, player that can create coming off the bench, he checks the boxes. So that would be the guy who I would keep an eye on. I look there because of I know Kelly Olynyk, Michael Scotto reported on Kelly Olynyk and the Knicks' interest there. So yeah, I would keep an eye on Utah. And also, like, to me, Quentin Grimes is kind of a fulcrum here, and like, where does he fit? And I know that Washington and I know that Atlanta and Utah, there are people in those organizations that are very high on Quentin Grimes. So are there deals to be made there where you can include Grimes? The other part of it is, what do the Lakers do, right? If they go all in on DeJounte Murray, that takes a Bruce Brown suitor off the board. And does that make it easier to deal for him? Maybe. So, I think that's kind of how I'm viewing it at the moment.
Speaking of Michael Scotto, he was a guest earlier today on Wednesday on The Putback.
A lot of shows today.
What?
A lot of shows today.
Dude,
a lot of Knicks content today.
I said you're the busiest man in show business. The Putback almost always has great guests. I have to say almost, because I am appearing on the show next week.
Wow, so, man, that's the best lineup when we get Johnny in the house.
Nothing will beat when we were on with Berman and he had to do it from outside. That was one of one.
Man, I hope his skin's okay, because that was a roast job.
It was a tough one. Okay, two last quick ones, and then I will get you out of here, and I will get out of here because we have things to do. If again, this is aggregators. Put your I don't know how do aggregators aggregate. Put your pens away.
You're gonna say put your pens down.
Put your pens down. Can you imagine if there are people with literal pens and papers that listen to this? If you had to guess right now, Knicks make a trade before next Thursday or not, what are you guessing?
My guess would be yes. I would guess that they do something.
And second part of that question, because I had a funny feeling that you were going to say that. Actually, sorry, before I get to the last question, I lied. There's one other thing I had to ask. Do you think there's any residual bad blood between the Jazz and the Knicks from whatever didn't happen a couple summers ago?
I would say I don't think so. Like, I think part of that bad blood was from when members of the Knicks were courtside for the Mavs Jazz series. I know
That was fun.
the Jazz were upset about that. And I mean, maybe it goes beyond that. I don't know if it does. But I don't know how deep it was, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't know if it would linger to that point. I thought you were going to say with Colin Sexton and what happened last night early on in the Knicks Jazz game, like, does that impact how they might view him? And I don't know, but I would say I would think so, because, clearly he was being a pain in the ass, and that's what he's good at that. But there was something extra there. It seemed like there was something extra there. Yeah. With Jalen, and obviously Jalen's the head of the snake.
I like Colin Sexton, and as I hear a crying baby from the other side of the door that I'm going to need to obtain soon. Last question: do you think Quentin Grimes is on the Knicks? 8.5 days from now?
I kind of think so.
You do think so? Okay,
I do. Yeah, because I just don't see that deal coming together where it's Grimes and it's Fournier and it's draft compensation for two players or whatever, one player. It's just, yeah.
Ian Begley, you are the best. I never feel bad about saying that. I have Fred on this freaking podcast all the time. He's like one of my best friends now. Ian, you're the GOAT, man. You're the GOAT. And I say this every time. Knicks fans better count their lucky stars. Our basketball team may have sucked often over the last 20 years, but we've had you to report on them, and that is a gift. So SNY, follow Ian Begley. What is it? At Ian Begley, right? Yeah, on Twitter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate the kind words, man. Really do. Don't take any of it lightly. It means a lot. So thank you very much.
It means a lot that you come on here and allow me to pester you with assorted nonsense for the time that I get to do it.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
We'll do it next week, except you can pester me with whatever you want to ask me about.
Yeah, I'll be hammering you with the tough questions.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. Ian Begley, everybody.